This show is presented by 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment.
Hello everyone, I'm Patrick Connor here with Karen A. Tate. We're back at the Clackamas Armory for another fight night with 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment. Tonight we're on the 4th installment, and that means that we have a special exhibition between Steve 2 Pound Forbes and DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley. Tonight, the headliner though is Andre Keys out of Tacoma, Washington. He's fighting Antonio Neal out of Spokane, and we also have Chris the Truth Johnson in the co-main event fighting William Fernandez. Couple other good fights on this card though, Karen.
Yeah.
A lot of local talent.
Yeah, it's really exciting that we have 6 fights total, including the exhibition, and we have a lot of young, up-and-coming prospects who are going to be really hungry and ready to show what they're made of and move to that next level. So it'll be exciting.
Very exciting night here for us. Let's get it kicking off with our announcer.
Folks, tonight's event is sanctioned by the Oregon State Athletic Commission. Our referees in charge of the action will be Joel Scobie and Joey Passarella. Our judges tonight are Jim Howard, Andy Dinger, and Perla Gonzalez. Doctors on hand this evening are Mark Wells and Kevin DeWeber. Fight number 5 is our co-main event of the evening. Let's have blue corner to the ring, please. Blue corner. Red corner, fighter to the ring, please. Red corner.
If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear. The cowards here and the blind fools, and they walk. If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear.
All right, fight fans, here we go with our co-main event of the evening. 4 rounds of professional boxing in the junior middleweight class. Introducing first out of the blue corner. His fight record still looking for his first win at 0-6. He is representing Central Boxing Phoenix. And fighting out of Tolleson, Arizona, please welcome William Fernandez. And his opponent fighting out of the red corner. His fight record stands at 4 wins and no losses, with one of those wins coming by way of knockout.
Daquan Wyatt is out there.
Representing Deschutes County Rocks. From Bend, Oregon, ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris the Truth Johnson.
Referees instructions for Chris the Truth Johnson.
Expect a good, clean fight. Go ahead and touch him up. Go back to corner.
Referee's instructions for Chris the Truth Johnson versus William Fernandez. We're going to have to see where this goes here, but Chris the Truth Johnson, two-time Oregon Golden Gloves winner. So we expect some polish here.
Yeah, right away you see Johnson is southpaw, and he's utilizing that well. You know, good angles, lots of athleticism to get in and out. On Fernandez, I like what I'm seeing there. You'll often hear people talk about when you have a southpaw versus an orthodox, you look for who has their lead foot on the outside, and they generally have an advantage. And usually, not always, but usually it's Johnson with his foot on the outside. And the reason that is so that the fighter with their lead foot on the outside means they can land their straight power hand.
It's basically a geometric advantage, as
Right.
it were.
Yeah.
And we see that Chris Johnson is pretty consistently keeping that lead right foot on the outside of Fernandez's left foot. And so he already, they say, what they call the southpaw advantage.
Nice
And
left hand to the body.
Southpaw left hand right there to the chest that puts Fernandez back to the ropes.
I really like that lead left from Johnson. That's really nice. And he looks to me to have quite a bit of a reach advantage, I think. He's listed as 5'11" on paper, and that looks about right. But yeah, he's got a height and reach advantage, and he's using it. He's keeping his jab out there really nicely. And he seems to have a lot of pop on both his jab and his power hand. And that's especially nice to see because he's moving his feet quite a bit, but he's got a lot of pop on his punches.
Now the 1-2 combination, the jab right hand, is such a well-known and popular combination that it's just kind of what you would expect to come at you. So they tell you when you're an orthodox fighter facing a southpaw to throw your lead right hand. Chris Johnson's kind of turning that on its head and throwing the lead left at an orthodox, which is, again, probably a fairly confusing move.
Yeah, I think a lot of top-level southpaws like to do that. And I noticed there a little bit earlier, I think Johnson got excited because I think he thought that he got Fernandez hurt a little bit. He stumbled a bit, Fernandez, but I think what actually happened was they got their feet tangled up.
I have to say, Fernandez is actually moving his head relatively well.
Yeah.
He's not as stationary as he kind of appears to be. He's getting caught, but he's making sure that he's not getting caught repeatedly.
Yeah. He's minimizing the damage.
Well, and there's Chris Johnson stepping forward, throwing in combination. He only has one knockout in 4 victories thus far, and I'm not entirely sure I like how he's kind of doing that kind of foot-lifting, cocking move with his left hand there sometimes. Yeah. That's kind of an amateurish move that you need to get rid of pretty quick.
And I also noticed Johnson, sometimes he sticks his chin out in the air a little bit, especially when he's throwing. That's a very dangerous move, especially when you're throwing. You might get caught countered with something that would, of course, do more damage with your chin stuck out.
He's definitely sticking his head up a little bit while in pursuit of Fernandez. And kind of as I had said earlier, like with Daquan Wyatt, for instance, where it seems like, well, he's doing certain things in the ring only because he's comfortable and because of the opponent. That might be true. He might be pursuing in that regard because he's comfortable pursuing Fernandez and he hasn't gotten hurt or, hasn't really gotten tagged. But those habits, you got to make sure that these are not the times to have those bad habits reinforced.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious, but things that you do repeatedly become habits, and ideally we want to see those be good things, not things that could get you hurt.
Not things that could lose you a fight.
Yeah. But yeah, Fernandez is, not only does he have a lot of heart, but he does have some skill. Like you pointed out, Patrick, he's got decent defense. He moves his head fairly well, though he just got tagged with a straight left from Johnson that was really nice. And actually,
I saw a left hand land there.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that shouldn't have been a knockdown. I think that could have been a knockdown, albeit not a very damaging one.
I was just going to say, just before that happened, I see Fernandez doing something that is getting him in trouble, which is, you know, he's moving his head, but he's often moving to his right. So against a southpaw, you're going right into that left hand, and Johnson is shown he's not shy about throwing that left hand, so it's getting Fernandez into a little bit of trouble.
He's also doing something else in that Fernandez is kind of just, he is moving his feet, but when he moves his feet, he kind of just plants and sticks them there and then moves his head rather than using any sort of pivots.
Yeah.
And that's also the kind of thing that can get you in trouble.
Definitely.
And looks like for the second fight in a row, we have a mouthpiece issue,
Not
this
sure
time
what
with
the
Fernandez.
confusion
Not
is
sure
about.
what we're waiting for. Maybe I think he went to put the mouthpiece back in without it getting cleaned is the issue. I guess. I don't know. But nonetheless, we're back to action here. Fernandez with a welt under his left eye. I don't know that many punches have landed super clean, so that could just be from a glove scratch or something like that. Abrasions happen all the time. But nonetheless, it is damaged. And
yeah, I think it's probably from that jab of Johnson's. He's been sticking it out there pretty well.
well, and now Fernandez is fighting with his gloves almost completely down. Not sure if that's out of exhaustion or if he's trying to make something happen with
I
like
think he's
baiting a counter or something.
Yeah, I think he's fatigued. It looks to me like he's breathing through his mouth. Fernandez is moving his hands on the inside, so is Johnson, but it looks to me like Fernandez is a little more comfortable there. Nice body shot from Fernandez as Johnson exits.
And that's a long torso from Chris Johnson. A lot of target for body punching, but Fernandez hasn't managed to go consistently to the body tonight. Pretty clearly getting outboxed and outworked here. Although there he is with a combination showing he's still alive.
He's doing a bit better in this round.
And there's some body work from him finally.
Yeah. Yeah, Fernandez is breathing through his mouth. I think he's pretty tired.
Crowd chanting CTJ, Chris the Truth Johnson. Round ends with Chris Johnson, for the most part, in control. Not a whole lot of danger of him losing the control thus far. Fernandez is sucking wind pretty good in his corner, and Chris Johnson, for the most part, looks pretty comfortable. And that's, again, one of those things you want to see from a young fighter.
Definitely, yeah. And you know, it may be a situation where Fernandez got the fight on short notice, I don't know, but you like to see a young fighter, you know, be steady in the gym and staying in shape even between fights. So yeah, hopefully he'll learn from this and you know, and that's the thing I often hear a lot of top fighters talk about, that especially when you're coming up, you never know when an opportunity might come your way, so you want to stay in shape and stay ready.
And William Fernandez, the brother of Mike Fernandez, who picked up that somewhat unexpected win against Dijon Corley in the opener this evening, obviously not doing quite as well as his brother Mike, but he is giving a pretty good account of himself overall. But notable in terms of, I don't want to talk over the action here, because it looks like Chris Johnson is opening up with his left hand, strafing with a few right hooks, kind of making something happen here.
I got to applaud both fighters for, they're both throwing a lot of punches, being very busy, especially for junior middleweights. And Johnson in particular, he's really letting his hands go, seems to have great stamina. He's breathing through his mouth a bit, but seems fine as far as stamina.
It's a good right uppercut, good lead right uppercut from Chris Johnson. A very tricky punch to get away with, but he did that time. He's covering up to the body after a handful of body shots from Fernandez, but otherwise looks unaffected.
Really nice clean punches upstairs there from Johnson. But both fighters are open defensively. every now and then, and occasionally both are taking advantage of it. Johnson more so than Fernandez, but still, Fernandez, like his brother, is very dogged in there, and he didn't come here to lose. It's just that I think part of the issue, you know, you mentioned his brother and that he had success earlier on the card against DeJon Corley. Part of that is a stylistic thing. You know, Mike Fernandez fought as a buzzsaw style, and William here is fighting more of a boxer pressure type fighter. And he's having some success. He does have some skill.
He definitely could learn some of that body punching from his brother, who was just ripping vicious body shots to DeJon Corley earlier tonight. But I guess the significance of them being brothers and fighting on this card is the fact that DeMarcus Corley fought with his son on the card, DeJon Corley. And then you have two brothers, William and Mike Fernandez. It's a family affair. It's about a half dozen good shots from Mike Fernandez there, or I'm sorry, William Fernandez, Mike Fernandez's brother. But Chris Johnson answers with a good right uppercut and a flurry of shots.
Nice uppercut there. Yeah, and Fernandez, those were good clean shots too. A couple body shots from Johnson, right hook upstairs. But yeah, Fernandez, he's really fighting in a swarming style, and you know, being somewhat effective with it. It's just that Johnson's getting the better of the shots landed and landing a few more. But
well, he's
really nice
now Chris Johnson's now stepping into his shots noticeably more.
Yeah.
But a moment ago, he actually, and it looks like Fernandez's left eye has opened up. Difficult to say because the light's in my eye just a little bit, but it looks like his eyes opened up a bit.
Yeah, and I think Johnson noticed there. I think he started laying it on a bit more because he noticed the fatigue that Fernandez was showing, and he was showing it pretty clearly. And I'm just sitting ringside, so I'm sure in the ring he sees it really clearly. And yeah, he was taking good advantage of that.
And one thing that Chris Johnson was doing in that round that I'd really like to see, not just from a young fighter, but just about any fighter, Karen, is when fighters aren't throwing every punch with awful intentions.
Yeah.
But he kind of busted through, you know, just a tap, 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 ripping shots right after a couple of those shots. That's exactly how you get a guy who's utilizing that high guard or trying to cover up to open up his guard, either by tricking him into thinking you're just throwing, you know, teeny shots, or even moving his guard out of the way with those shots. And I like to see that from a fighter, creating opportunities and not just waiting for something to happen.
Absolutely. That's what we were talking about earlier on the card. I like to see fighters just like you know, setting some kind of trap, planning ahead, you know, thinking about what they can do to defeat their opponent, you know, to create openings. And that's nice to see from Johnson. Especially, he hasn't been boxing for that long, so it's really nice to see him developing that IQ. Nice right hook to the body there from Johnson.
And he's doing a good job of keeping his distance a little bit in the beginning of this round, perhaps sensing that, I don't want to say he's got the fight in the bag, especially not after that decision we just saw go against Daquan Wyatt, but perhaps feeling confident enough to keep his distance, you know, play it a little bit more safe in this round.
A little showboating there from Johnson.
And just as I say that, he starts stepping into his shots a little more.
Yeah. But yeah, he is maintaining range really well, and I think that's a big part of his success actually in this fight. Fernandez is having a harder time getting into the range there. He's comfortable. He seems to like more of the mid-range, and like I mentioned earlier, Johnson's got quite a bit of reach advantage on him, so he's keeping Fernandez outside for the most part.
And a lot of these shots that Chris Johnson is landing clean are not super hard, and again, he's only got one knockout in 4 victories thus far, so perhaps not a big puncher, although not quite enough fights under his belt to be able to say. But you could tell that he's kind of at various points of this fight kind of utilizing different levels of power.
There's some good body work going on there from both Fernandez and Johnson, actually. Especially Fernandez. I like that ripping right hand to the body that he's been throwing.
Yeah.
Fernandez's left eye is bloody, and it
really
looks like it's
taking a beating.
closing up a little bit again. Nice body work from Johnson.
And he's also given different looks. Look into the body, but then throwing upstairs and vice versa. You know,
Yeah.
they seem simple, but they're kind of veteran tactics.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that if he can really put this entire picture together, we're looking at something really nice here in the Pacific Northwest.
Definitely. Fernandez, you really have to hand it to him. He came to win, you know. I don't see him giving up yet. It's the last round, and he's still really dogged, and he's still trying everything he can, and he's having some success. It's just not enough to win the round on my card.
No, and he's taken quite a bit of facial damage, and while he's obviously done better in both last round and this round, it's, again, as far as scoring, it's a case of just not quite doing enough to overcome what Chris Johnson's doing.
Yeah.
And he's looking to finish strong here, and he does.
He finished very strong, and you know, I have to mention again, Johnson is throwing in so much volume. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that kind of volume up as he starts fighting in longer fights, but for now, that's a tremendous strength to have, especially as a young fighter. Most fighters, no matter what your style is, if you throw in volume, it's just really hard to deal with. It's a lot to deal with defensively, much less trying to get your own offense off, so it's good to see.
Yeah, and I think judges tend to like that style.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I don't really have any sort of evidence for that or statistics, but you know, it makes sense. It kind of just follows logic that if a guy's moving forward, throwing punches, making the fight, as it were, being aggressive, it's just a little bit more favorable to the judges.
Well, if you're moving your hands more, you're landing more in
You got
general. So yeah, I think judges do like that.
We'll see if the Fernandez family can make it 2-0 tonight, although what was your unofficial score there for this fight, Karen?
I had all 4 rounds to Johnson myself, but I could see, you know, maybe one of those rounds, maybe 3 to Fernandez, but I feel like that's kind of stretching it a bit. I still felt like Johnson, you know, landed more clean punches and was having his way, frankly. He was a lot more comfortable. He was setting traps, you know, ring generalship. He was kind of doing what he wanted, as well as landing more clean punches. So that's how I had it.
Well, based on that Daquan Wyatt fight, we might be having the judging lottery tonight, so we'll have to see what happens there. But assuming everything is on the up and up, and assuming that this decision is what we think, then we should be looking at another win for Chris the Truth Johnson.
Fighters in our co-main event of the evening as we go to our judges' scorecards. All 3 judges saw the fight 40-36 for a unanimous decision win. And your winner out of the red corner, Chris the Truth Johnson.
Had to check corner colors real quick on my sheet just to make sure. I was like, wait a second, red corner, who was in the red corner? Whew. Avoided disaster there for a second time.
All right, we're here with our winner, Chris the Truth Johnson. Chris, sounds like you brought some friends with you tonight.
I did. I always try to. More than just friends, I brought my family with me, and I appreciate every one of them coming.
Absolutely. Talk about the matchup tonight. A game
man.
opponent.
Good showing.
And you handled yourself well.
He was very game. He was very tough. And I'm a little disappointed in myself, to be honest. I know I could have put on a little bit better show for everybody, but I'll be back in the gym, and I promise next time I will.
Anybody you want to thank? Sponsors and folks helping you get ready for this fight tonight.
All my sponsors and my friends, I wouldn't be here without my coaches. They push me every day. And everybody else that came here to show support, I appreciate you guys. I heard a couple of other coaches out there giving me a little bit of advice. I tried to follow it as best I could, and like I said, I'll get back in the gym, work at doing that.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner, Chris the Truth Johnson.
This show is presented by 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment.